Even playing the drum doesn't keep you safe from the bullies. Hi everyone, I'm Jacob, I'm the Cowhat Librarian, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Boys in the Back Row by Mike Jung. Now, Matt's an average student. He plays in the school marching band, he plays in the school orchestra, and he has a best friend named Eric. Now, to have more time hanging out with his friend Eric outside of bonding over comic books, Matt decides to switch his instrument in the marching band from the flute, where he was surrounded by girls and was called gay because of it by the school bully, to playing a bass drum at the very back, right next to his friend. And at first it seems like a pretty good trade. He gets to hang out more with his friend. Playing bass drum is very, very easy compared to the flute. And he seems to be having an okay time of things. Well, sort of. The big bully, who is also a member of the band, yes, there is a small overlap in those two Venn diagrams, Kenny, still gives him problems as a bass drum player. Kenny still makes homophobic comments about him and his friendship with Eric. And Kenny's good friend Sean is another bass drum player who has to set up right near Matt and Eric. Well, in addition to the things going on with band, something else bad is happening in Matt's life. Eric is moving at the end of the semester. His mom had a great job opportunity somewhere else, and he's going to be leaving town, leaving Matt without his best friend. And they're pretty bummed about the whole thing, but they have an idea. You see, their absolute favorite comic creator in the world is going to be speaking and signing autographs at DefenderCon, and it just happens to be being held beside the World of Amazement, a fantastic amusement park that their marching band will be performing at the same time the cartoonist is at DefenderCon. It's quite a coincidence, and it seems like a really good idea to them. They can go on this trip, compete with the marching band, and on their free day when they would otherwise be expected to ride roller coasters and enjoy the park, they'll sneak across to DefenderCon and go get their idol's autograph and buy the new anthology he's releasing. Simple, right? Well, not quite. There are a couple challenges ahead. First off, they have to figure out the logistics of actually escaping World of Amazement and making it over to DefenderCon. Second, they have to find a way to avoid the teachers. And third, they have to find a way to avoid the bullies. Now, Kenny shouldn't be too big of a problem. He's Kenny. They try to avoid him as much as possible anyway. But Sean adds a bit of trouble to the mix because he's found out about their plan. And as it turns out, he's also a fan of the same comic creator, and he wants to ditch World of Amazement and go to DefenderCon with them. Now, Matt and Eric had planned this out to be sort of their last hurrah, the last great moment of their friendship before Eric's move. And they don't really want to go with Sean. And so the odds of them successfully getting away with this and doing what they want to do as a duo keep getting more and more stacked against them. It's great. It's really, really fun. The characters feel very real. I empathized with Matt and losing his friend, and Matt faces some racism because of his Korean American family, and he faces it in the form of Kenny, who nicknames him Wang instead of his last name Park, and who also keeps up with the homophobic comments throughout the story. And it's not just that though. Everyone seems to feel that Matt and Eric are closer than they should be. A number of people make comments about them being really close friends or boyfriends or the like. And even a chance encounter has that happen. When they're in a local comic store looking at some comics, the woman at the counter comments about them and suggests that they're in a relationship. And when the boys deny it, the woman comments, well, you look at each other. You stare longer than most boys would look at a friend of theirs, and you make really, really intense eye contact with each other. It's not something I normally see in boys who come in here together. And so life's kind of challenging for them, and they're not really sure how to deal with it. And it was well written. I enjoyed it. It was fun. And if you liked some of Gordon Corman's stuff, if you liked No Coins, Please, this would probably be a good book because it follows a similar premise of boys trying to get away from authority figures on a trip to go do something great. Not to make money in this case, but to go meet the comic creator. Or if you enjoyed Who is Bugs Potter, this is a great next read because it follows a very, very similar idea. A student in band trying to get away with a friend to go do something amazing. And this one's just a little more down to earth, a little less stalkery than Bugs's fascination with B.B. Laney. And so if you liked either of those Corman books, I highly recommend this one and vice versa. Now, with that said, it wasn't perfect. There are spoilers ahead because I have to talk about the deal breakers. Yes, plural. Okay, first off, I'm not a fan of the cover. It makes it look like there's all this weird, nasty stuff happening in the background. And the other thing is that Matt's identified as Korean American in the book. And the cover, he looks like an average Caucasian boy. And so I'm not really sure if the cover artist just was trying really hard to not use racist coding when the cover artist was doing the drawing, or whether the cover artist just wasn't aware that Matt was supposed to be Korean American. I'm not sure. At any rate, it is a little bit disappointing because when I found out he was Korean American, I thought, well, that's great. Why aren't you displaying him that way in the cover? And showing that representation on the cover for kids who would be looking for this sort of representation in a book. It feels like a real missed opportunity to me. The second thing that I really wasn't a fan of was that Kenny, the bully in the book, uses a number of homophobic slurs to refer to Matt and Eric. And that's not fun, but I could agree that, yeah, that's a pretty real depiction of kids this age, unfortunately. The problem was that the book also heavily implied that Kenny himself was gay. And I think that's a really problematic stereotype to get into. The whole, he's secretly gay, so he's outwardly homophobic. I think that's a really damaging stereotype. I wasn't happy to see it in here. I feel like the author could have done a better job there. And the final thing is that, to me, it feels like the author was trying to attract interest based on the possibility of Matt and Eric in fact realizing that they were gay or bisexual and had feelings for one another. Romantic feelings, to be clear. And teased it and didn't follow through with it. And that's a little disappointing. If the author had taken out the portion at the comic shop where the woman working there commented about how intently they look at each other and the eye contact and everything else, it wouldn't have had the same feeling to it that ultimately they would come to this realization. At the end of the book, there's an accident. Sean booby traps their hotel room, and there's smoke, and they end up on a balcony, and Matt falls over the edge trying to go get pants for Eric because he ran out in his shorts. And it's a little bit convoluted, honestly, although I can't be sure if it was the writing or if it was me being tired when I finished the book. So I think I've got to give some leeway there. But anyway, Eric makes it to DefenderCon without Matt, buys this new anthology and gets it autographed for him as a going away present. And he's explaining why he got it for him. And he says, well, you must know why I got it for you, right? I love you, you know. And Matt looks back and says, well, I love you too. And Eric says, I know. and it feels like a fun Star Wars nod. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is where the author is heading. Maybe they, in fact, do have romantic feelings for each other. And then Matt follows up by saying that he wishes they could be brothers. And all of that's fine. They don't have to have any type of relationship. I like the idea that the author is showing that boys who are friends don't have to be dude bros. They don't have to be ones that insult each other all the time, or pick on each other, or are uncomfortable being friendly and close with each other. And that's great, and that's a really, really positive thing to display. But when it's coupled with the constant references to these boys being in a relationship, both from their bullies and from someone who's ostensibly a supporter of that kind of relationship between them at the comic store, I'm not quite sure what the author is trying to accomplish here. As I said, if one or two things had been cut slightly differently, either yes, they were going to admit that they did have some feelings for each other, or no, they didn't have that segment in the comic store with the young woman who was talking to them. I feel either way would have been a better way to deal with things. Now, I understand there's some benefit to having ambiguity and that people's feelings aren't always cut and dry. And that's okay. But it felt like the author was trying to have his cake and eat it too. With that, thanks for joining me on this rambling discussion of The Boys in the Back Row. Please like, please subscribe, and please keep an eye out for the other videos I'll be doing and the other stuff I'll be talking about from the Cowhat Library. Thank you. Bye now.